Dear students, today we will be beginning with another topic of entrepreneurship, and that is theories of entrepreneurship development. So, how that concept of entrepreneurship developed, and it is developed by different people. So, different people have spoken about that different things. So, these are called the theories. We have studied theories of motivation, we know theories of leadership, we know theories of management, we know all those things. In the same way, there are theories of entrepreneurship. There are so many theories. Just you can see here in this, I have given 14. So, I have not explained much about these 14, but a few things in detail and few in short. But information regarding all the 14 I have given. So there are some important theories because these people have given the definitions of entrepreneurship itself. Therefore, Schumpeter's theory of innovation. When I was explaining about what is entrepreneurship, I hope that you have remembered that entrepreneurship is innovation. So that was given by Schumpeter. Then Max Weber's theory of social change. So emphasis on impact of religion. Then the uncertainty bearing theory of Knight. Another person called Knight. He has given uncertainty bearing, means the risk bearing, we can take it. Then theory of Frank Young, another man, emphasis on changes in group level pattern. Then we have economic theory of entrepreneurship. Then Mark Casson's theory, economic theory, similar these are. Then Kunkel's theory, emphasis on entrepreneurial supply. Then Hochschild's theory, emphasis on marginal groups. Then Cochrane's theory. Then E. Hagen's theory, that emphasizes on withdrawal of status respect. Then Liebenstein's theory. So Liebenstein or Liebenstein, these are foreign names. So these are persons' names. Kisray's theory. Then we have Baumel's view on entrepreneurship. Then Peter Drucker's view on entrepreneurship. So even about Peter Drucker, we have heard. Schumpeter, we have heard. So many more of these people have said something about the entrepreneurship. So you need not study all the theories, but if at all a question asked, explain the theories of entrepreneurship development, then you have to explain this. Okay. So we'll see one after the another. I hope that I may not be able to cover all within one session. So I'll split this session theories in three. So Schumpeter's theory of innovation. Joseph Schumpeter propounded the well-known innovative theory of entrepreneurship. Schumpeter takes the case of a capitalist closed economy which is in stationary equilibrium. He believed that entrepreneurs disturb the stationary circular flow of the economy by introducing an innovation and takes the economy to a new level of development. The activities of an entrepreneur represent a situation of disequilibrium as their activities break the routine circular flow. So, when innovations of entrepreneurs are responsible for the rapid economic development of any country. So, here what it says is there is a regular flow of economy, but entrepreneurs are the people who are disturbing that economy. Disturbing not to put down, but to take one step higher. So, they come out with some innovation and it will grow. So, talking about innovation, he referred to a new combinations of the factors of production. So, what he has said about the innovation is new factors of production, either maybe technological change, either maybe raw material change, or the human resource change, idea change, anything maybe, because factors of productions are different. Schumpeter had assigned the role of innovator to the entrepreneur, who is not a man of ordinary managerial ability but one who introduces something entirely new. According to him, entrepreneur is not just with the managerial ability. He is a manager if he just is having a managerial ability. Entrepreneur should be something entirely new. One who is introducing something entirely new is an entrepreneur. Otherwise, he cannot be. Therefore, entrepreneurship is some innovation. That was the understanding of Schumpeter. It's not exactly true. We can't say, okay, some part. How Schumpeter had believed, that we are saying. That's why we call it, this is a theory. Theory of him. So, practically, it is followed or not something different. So, according to him, this is a case. Innovation could involve any of the following. In the innovation, what could be involved? See, innovation of new products. So, something new you are producing. Innovation in novel methods or process of production. You have changed the method of production. The opening up of a new market. This is also innovation. Opening up of a new market. So entrepreneurs might find new source of supply of raw materials. Innovation in management. So innovation in management means recognition of reorganization of an industry. Means in the industry itself you have brought whole changes. Now you take example, nothing new. You are running hotel, same personnel, same what you call food items, same cook, everything is same. Now what you have done is whole setup you have changed, that sitting facility, comfort, then what you call your plates and all what you are supplying. You see, atmosphere is changed. So that is something new. So let's try to understand the meaning of different facets or phases of the term innovation. So the introduction of a new product means the product which the consumers have not seen and is of a new and better quality and utility. A new method of production refers to a novel process not yet been used in manufacturing and commercial production. This may increase the productivity and lower cost of production. So this is called innovation. So new product and new process. The discovery of a new market means a new market which may have existed before but was not entered by the enterprise for commercial purposes. A new source of raw material similarly refers to a source or a place which has not been commercially exploited by the enterprises before. Innovation in management refers to organization and reconciliation of the position of the enterprise in the industry by building a monopoly like a control or dismantling existing monopoly of others in the industry. So these are what we saw, just the points here. So the explanation of this, how they are something new is coming up. Schumpeter was very explicit about the economic function of the entrepreneur, whom he considered as the prime mover in economic development, and the entrepreneur's task is to innovate and or carry out new combination. So he is only believing that innovation and carry out new combinations. That's what the entrepreneurship for Schumpeter. So Schumpeter had differentiated between invention and innovation. We should understand that invention refers to creation of new materials and innovation refers to application of new materials into practical use in industry. Similarly, there is a distinction between an innovator and an inventor. The inventor is the one who invents new materials and new methods. On the other hand, the innovator is the one who utilizes these inventions and discoveries in order to make new combinations. So this is also speaks about the newness. Bringing about innovations is the main task of an entrepreneur and not the maintenance of the enterprise. So, and entrepreneurship means not maintaining that enterprise. So, it is something bringing new. Entrepreneurs dream and have a willingness to establish a private kingdom. They enjoy creating and getting things done. This innovating entrepreneur has played an important role in the rise of modern capitalism. The throughout it says that entrepreneurship means something new to create it, not just the maintaining. Schumpeter's theory has been subjected to the following criticisms. Now you see, we said that Schumpeter is selling innovation, creativity, everything. Now what we know that, okay, that's a one view of entrepreneurship. At the same time, this theory, what he was proposing, is disturbed or criticized by somebody. So, critics feel that the theory overemphasized on innovative functions of the an entrepreneur. It ignored the organizing aspects of entrepreneurship. See, this is one of the drawback of this theory. He is highly stressing on innovation, but we must remember that in the entrepreneurs functions of entrepreneur, innovation is one. There are so many other organizing, risk taking, everything is there. Therefore, organizing aspects are ignored. Then, Schumpeter had completely ignored the risk taking function of the entrepreneur, which cannot be ignored. Whenever an entrepreneur develops a new combination of factors of production, there is enough risk involved. See, he doesn't speak about the risk, he speaks about only the innovation. And we must note that whenever there is a thinking of new things, then there is a risk involved, there is uncertainty. Then the third criticism is the theory is more applicable in developed countries only. In developing countries, there is a paucity of innovative entrepreneurs. The theory is more applicable in developed countries only. So, in developing countries, there is a paucity of innovative entrepreneurs. What it says is innovation is possible when there are everything is developed. Now, just in a developing place, managing and organizing is something more important. Completely everything new, it is very developed there possible. Okay. Then fourth, the theory does not provide the explanation as to why few countries have more entrepreneurship talent than others. So this is another criticism that they are levied. He doesn't speak why there is some what you call more, so more entrepreneurship talents in some other countries it is not there. So no answers to this. Despite of all the above criticisms, Schumpeter's theory is considered as a landmark in the expansion of entrepreneurship theory. We must remember that this has contributed something to the entrepreneur concept of entrepreneurship. It is not a completely denied fact. Yes, so in somewhere he is wrong, not wrong as such, what you call not complete. So this was the this was the Schumpeter's theory. It is focused completely on innovation, and many factors he has left out, especially the organizing and the risk-bearing capacities. So I hope that you have understood now one theory. Let's move with the second theory, that is Max Weber's theory of social change. So Max Weber emphasizes on impact of religion, how that religion concept has what you call contribution to the entrepreneurship. No, it's there some contribution. Max Weber advocated a sociological explanation for the growth of entrepreneurship in his theory of social change. He felt that religion had a profound influence on the growth of entrepreneurship. The religious belief and ethical value associated with the society plays a vital role in determining the entrepreneurial culture. What it says is what the religion has a contribution to the entrepreneurship. So it is the religion who is influencing for the growth of entrepreneurship according to Max Weber. So whether you accept it or not, he says that it is a religion's force to develop the entrepreneurship and is influence whether to stay back or not. Because what I am telling you is in Indian culture itself, you see there were four varnas. So according to the varnas, what you call Brahmanas, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, and Shudras. So there is a caste which we call merchants. So especially the Vaishyas, they are merchants caste. So that way he is speaking. Then Max Weber opined that the entrepreneurial energies of a society are exogenously generated and supplied by religious beliefs. Some religions profess the basic values to earn and acquire money, whereas some religions put less emphasis on it. In order to understand the gist of Max Weber's theory, we need to understand few fundamental points of the theory. So in his theory, spirit of capitalism is a fundamental concept. So this also we have to take into consideration. Capitalism. So that is what we call private sectors. This one entrepreneurship is focusing. So capitalism refers to the economic system where market forces of demand and supply are allowed to play freely. Nothing is controlled by the government, neither of the society. Allow it freely according to the market. Demand and supply. Demand is controlled by the supply, and the supply is controlled by the demand. So that way it's. As economic freedom and private enterprises are promoted in capitalism, the entrepreneurism is eulogized and entrepreneurial pursuits are encouraged. Spirit of capitalism promotes the entrepreneurs to engage in entrepreneurial pursuits and earn more and more profits. So this is what the what you call view of Max Weber. The urge to acquire money and profits drives the individuals to become entrepreneurs. So this you have to be clear. The urge to acquire money and profits. One who wants to do more money, and this is also true today. Why the people do business? They want to earn money. Okay, very rarely that I should help the people, that why I start the business. But usually, why do you start the business? You want to make money. The spirit of capitalism will be widespread in the society that favors capitalism. Another associated concept was that of adventurous spirit, which refers to the impulsive force that influences and promotes entrepreneurism. Weber felt that the belief system of Hinduism did not encourage entrepreneurship. See, he has a feeling that the belief systems of Hinduism did not encourage entrepreneurship. It has an influence, he says, and this is a negative influence from the religion. Hinduism laid less emphasis on wealth accumulation and material life. Hinduism did not profess the spirit of capitalism and was thus an obstacle to promotion entrepreneurship. See, here the people should have a idea to make money. Then only they will go to the business. But Hinduism did not have the money making concept. Weber was of the opinion that the Protestant ethic provided the mental attitude in a society that promotes spirit of capitalism and favors entrepreneurship. The rate of industrial growth depends upon the values professed by the religion of the society. The Protestants had advanced at a faster rate in establishing capitalism in Europe owing to the value system professed by Protestant ethic. Protestant ethic granted them the rational economic attitude, accumulating assets, and permitted them to take pleasure in the material life. You see, who has this one mainly promoted is the Protestant had advanced faster rate in establishing capitalism in Europe. So Protestant is a religion, a part of Christianity. So they had focused much on the business. So these are the first people who stressed. Therefore, Protestants' ideology gave much influence to the business. Therefore, religion is focusing to the entrepreneurship. He says Max Weber's view. So this theory also criticized. Max Weber had tried and made a commendable contribution in explaining the growth of entrepreneurship, but his theory has been challenged and criticized by many researchers and scholars on the following grounds. The theory is based on unrealistic and invalid assumptions. So, this is the first thing he says. The theory is based on unrealistic and invalid. This is the invalid assumption. So, religion is influencing. This means it is not a right thing. Some others said. So, the theory has been found empirically invalid, not practical. He says. So, you can't prove that. Then Max Weber has been criticized by many sociologists on his view on Hinduism and entrepreneurship. So the rapid expansion of entrepreneurship in India in the post-independence period disproves that Hinduism is averse to the spirit of capitalism, to adventurous spirit. He said that Hindu concept was not for business, but after independence in India, many people entrepreneurship has developed. Okay, earlier they were not there. The views on Protestant ethic were also not completely correct. Capitalism has flourished in regions where Protestant ethic is not present. So, not only in the Protestant, where there were no Protestant, there also money making concept was developed. Therefore, this is not a right theory. These are the views from other proponents. So I hope now you have understood the another concept. The first one is Schumpeter's innovation theory, Max Weber's theory on the religious basis. And now I'll be explaining the third, and the third is the uncertainty bearing theory of night. So here Knight is a person's name. So Frank H. Knight, 1957, in his book Risk, Uncertainty and Profit, regards profit of the entrepreneur as the reward of bearing non-insurable risks and uncertainties. Entrepreneurship is genuinely associated with risk bearing. So his concept is risk bearing. So here uncertainty and bearing. So risk bearing. So Knight had distinguished risk into insurable risks and non-insurable risks. He had divided insurable risk into insurable risks and non-insurable risks. Some risks could be insured, some risks you cannot insure. Let us try to understand the underlying concept of risk. There are certain risks that are measurable, and the profitability of such a risk can be statistically estimated, and hence such risk can be insured. Example of insurable risk include theft of commodities, fire in the enterprise, accidental death, etc. On the other hand, there are certain risks which cannot be calculated. So I am not going to explain this because you will be studying about the risk and insurance in your next semester in detail. So the probability of their occurrence cannot be statistically ascertained. Such risks include risks associated to changes in prices, demand and supply. These risks are non-insurable. Professor Knight opined that the profit is the reward for bearing the non-insurable risks and uncertainties. Now, why he made a distinction between the insurable and risk, non-insurable risk, to say that okay, your insurable risk could be reduced by, or what you call made secure by taking a insurance. But there are so many non-insurable risks. Especially he has mentioned that what you call changes in the price, changes in the demand, changes in the supply. Now you have started your business and you have produced something, you are not sure tomorrow is there a demand. Your products may not be having demand. So your supply, raw materials are supplied for you or not, you are not sure. Prices will in the market will remain same or it will come down, you don't know. So it is a risk. Now you start your grow vegetables, you say highly risky business, and when you it comes for a this one what you call harvesting, no rate for your product at all. Uncertainty bearing is one of the most vital function in a dynamic economy. The entrepreneur bears the uncertainty involved in the enterprise, and the expectation of the profit is the supply price of the entrepreneurial uncertainty bearing exercise. In a state of economy where there is no risk, every entrepreneur will have a minimum supply price. So what you call minimum supply price, where there is a less risk. The adventures you are making, then there is a more risk. More the gain, more the risk. If the reward allocated to the entrepreneur is below it, the entrepreneurs will abstain from providing their entrepreneurial services. The existence of uncertainty tends to raise the minimum supply price. The entrepreneurs expect a level of profit for bearing the uncertainty. So, this is what you call some more information about risk bearing and uncertainty. The salient points of the Knight's theory is, according to the theory, the entrepreneur earns pure profits for bearing the uncertainty. The probability of uncertainty or non-insurable risk cannot be statistically estimated. You can't say this much is and all. Calculation you can't make it. Entrepreneurs undertake a risk of varying degrees according to their ability and inclination. So the theory suggests that the more risky the nature of enterprise, the higher level of profit earned by the entrepreneurs. So, profit is the reward of the entrepreneur for bearing uncertainties and risks. Hence, it should be a part of the normal cost. The reward of the entrepreneur is uncertain. Entrepreneur guarantees interest to lender of capital, wages to workers, and rent to the landlord. So, what you call reward of the entrepreneur is uncertain. You don't know. The level of uncertainty is in business can be reduced by applying the technique of consolidation. The total level of uncertainty can be reduced by pooling individual instances. So all putting together at that time uncertainty could be put down. So these are the salient features. At the same time, this theory also is criticized for some points by some critics. We will just go through what are the criticisms. The role of an entrepreneur has not been elaborately provided by the theory. The entrepreneur's activity has been restricted to uncertainty bearing. Modern business activities are different. Often there is a dichotomy between ownership and management. These factors have not been taken into consideration. See, entrepreneurs, what you call management and ownership, there are two different aspects, and here it is not focused. It says differentiation is not done. The uncertainty bearing theory discussed the concept of profit in a vague way, in a confused way. It says the exact estimation of profit for the entrepreneur has not been provided in the theory. So, what is the profit for exactly is not what you call cited. Profit as a residual income of the entrepreneur has been criticized. Then finally, it is critics feel that uncertainty bearing should not be treated like other factors of production like land, labor, and capital. It is a psychological concept and should be treated in a different manner. So, what you call some of the factors of production are what you call exact, but uncertainty bearing is not a factor of production, it says. So these are the criticisms that are levied on this theory. So now I hope that you have understood Knight's theory. Let us see one more theory, that is theory of Frank Young. So emphasis on changes in group level pattern. A micro-sociological interpretation of entrepreneurship as coined for the theory propounded by Frank Young emphasizes that the entrepreneurial initiatives are conditioned by group level pattern. Young rejected the psychogenic interpretations of entrepreneurship. He considered the solidarity groups responsible for building entrepreneurship. So here we shall try to understand his theory by studying the various specific elements attached to the theory. That Frank Young opined that the entrepreneurial characteristics are observed in clusters, ethnic groups, occupational groups, and groups with political orientation. See, particular groups are for what you call business. Now, Vaishyas, Kshatriyas, so they are for the business, like that. Groups we say. Now, one each ethnic groups are there, castes are there. They have to do one job like that. Entrepreneurism at the individual level is the manifestation of the group level pattern. Young disapproves the notion of the entrepreneur working individually. The entrepreneur functions as a member of a group. Because he is a member of a particular group, he will do the particular job. He will do the particular business. So I hope you understand. Now Indian custom was such that if you are a barber, take example, a barber community people will start a what you call saloon, barbers. So that was the concept. So the entrepreneurial initiatives and actions are the outcome of the experiences and exposures of an individual entrepreneur as a member of a particular group, the family background, and the entrepreneur of the manifestation of the general values of the group. Say why he is starting a particular business, Why he is doing ventures? It's because of his group influence or his ethnic influence. That's what this Frank says. The economic problems faced by the individual entrepreneurs are mitigated by the solidarity of entrepreneurial groups. The individual entrepreneurs enjoy the confidence of their association with the solidarity groups, which help the individual entrepreneurs to overcome any sort of economic problems. So, Frank Young reduced the group level pattern behavior exhibited by the entrepreneurs on the basis of his test known as thematic appreciation test on groups of entrepreneurs. The Young's theory includes the idea of reactive subgroups. So, these reactive subgroups play an important role in enterprise creation. The reactive groups crop up whenever a group experiences low status recognition, limited or no access to social networks, and have better institutional resources as compared to other groups in the society at same level. So, what you call whole idea is changes in the group level pattern. So I hope what you call you understood these theories, and I close here for the time being for today's session, and let's continue other theories. Another 10 more theories are pending. We'll have little explanations on everything.